Hey everyone, I'm Kylie Schlesinger, and I'm currently in my last year of orthodontics residency.
And I'm Michael Schlesinger, Kylie's dad.
And this is Medical
Medical
Morons.
Morons.
Each episode, we'll be picking the brains of some of the most successful healthcare professionals who have mastered the art of running their own businesses.
Join us as we ask the questions you want answered.
No jargon, no fluff, just fun and easy conversations on building a thriving practice. Let's
Let's
get
get started.
started. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Medical Morons. Hope everyone enjoyed their long weekend. I know I did. So, in today's episode, we sat down with Marjorie Kreppel, CEO and founder of the Counseling Center Group, and one of her amazing therapists, Rachel Koehn. Rachel also happens to be basically a sister to me and a second daughter to my dad. So this one felt extra personal and fun. So the Counseling Center Group is a major therapy practice based out of DC. And given its success, you'd think it's been around for forever. But before she became a therapist, Marjorie had a successful 25-year career in sales and marketing. So I was already impressed that she had the guts to do a total 180 and go back to school later than, the typical therapy student. But instead of it being a setback, this was a springboard for Marjorie. She was pedal to the metal and now oversees 60 therapists, that's 60, across 7 states. While she obviously had the business acumen to get to where she is today, what really struck my dad and me was the culture she created. Instead of focusing on profit like a lot of businesses do, Marjorie built a business where her therapists feel a deep sense of ownership and community. And that sense of purpose has had a trickle down effect on their performance. Um, I literally want to work there.
It's really interesting how the business side flows from the culture side of the company that she's building or has built. And, even though she also kind of almost underplays her level of business
Yeah,
sophistication.
what the heck?
But yet, as you peel into everything and you see she's got sophisticated tools, and it sounds like she's managed to incorporate a structure that's effective and efficient. So I was really struck by her business acumen for somebody who, doesn't seem to want to, too much tout that ability. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, and it's cool because it's she created this like ecosystem of a company. It's like there's different like if you want to be just someone who's like an associate, in other healthcare professions, you can be if you want to be a clinical director, if you want to be a clinical manager, like there's ways to kind of like still be more involved in the business, less involved in the business. It's so impressive that she's also able to make this community virtually, because they're all in different locations. It's not like Google or something where you do collaborate and work together, to get a certain job done. It's more to learn from each other and to enjoy your environment. So, and maybe that's because she's a therapist that she recognizes the emotional intelligence of that.
Well, I mean, and it ties into her skill as a leader. One of the interesting things that she said that resonated with me was as far as PTO, paid time off, she basically says, do whatever you need to do. If you have a doctor's appointment, go to your doctor's appointment. If you have to be at your kid's school, go to your kid's school. And when I was a general counsel leading a team, I always would say to them, look, you're all professionals. I expect you to get the work done. If you need to drop out, for 2 or 3 hours during the afternoon for something to deal with in your life, they all used to send me an email saying, I'm going to be out. And I would always respond to them. I said, I don't, I
You
really
were
don't
like,
need
please
to
don't flood
know.
my email.
I really don't need to know. I said you're a mature, responsible, highly performing professional. I expect you to do what you need to do. And she's, echoes that kind of approach, which I think is a very high level of leadership that people respond to very, very well. And I think, in these organizations where they're, really pushing productivity and just drilling people with, numbers and goals and expectations that make it unfun to work there. I think that she's a great counterpoint in terms of how she runs her business. I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, no, she's incredibly smart and clever and business savvy. She she has hit the sweet spot with wanting her employees to enjoy their lives and enjoy what they're doing, but still take the job extremely seriously and provide the most care that they can, which is smart because now everyone wants to be a part of it. I mean, it's aspirational. I really hope to have a practice like that someday. And like I said, I'd love to work there if they're ever hiring for an orthodontist. All
Mhm.
right, let's welcome Marjorie Kreppel and Rachel Koehn to Medical Morons.
I mean, I think Rachel can agree with this. Like, it's like working with our clients. If I looked at the whole big picture and I was like, oh, I'll go back to graduate school and I'll get my master's and then I'll do this and this, I would have been paralyzed. I had to really just take it small incremental step by small incremental step. Okay, I'll just take the GREs. Okay, I'll just apply to a couple schools. It's like I had to take each incremental step and I had to do that the whole way through, including the next exam, the next paper, because if I ever looked too big picture, it just would have shut me down. So, as long as we're taking, thousands of baby steps, we move places fast. But if we're looking at it too big and looking to take a giant leap, we'll never do it.
So as you were kind of leaving the institutional practice and contemplating your own business, give us like some flavor about what the decisions that you were going through, what professionals you may have hired to help advise on those considerations, real estate.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, initially I was working for three different companies because I had to get the hours. And as soon as I was ready to go solo, I joined a listserv and I just looked for people who are posting that they had office space to lease. It's like starting small. They have all kinds of shared office spaces now, some of which are HIPAA compliant and people in the health industry can work from until they build to the next thing and the next thing. It was really one step at a time. Did I have people consulting with me? I took the time to have a really good accountant and I took the time to make sure my attorney was really strong. And that's not something that I shied away from in terms of, the cost and, a trademark attorney as well. I wanted to trademark the name and make sure that that was protected. For someone who does not have a business background, there are plenty of people out there doing business coaching. I'm now doing that as well. For me, it was sort of second nature to know to do some of these things. But, definitely I would say get a business coach who's done it before in your field and walk through and you'll learn from them not so much what to do. Well, definitely what to do, but certainly what not to do as well, because we all learn from our mistakes and would have done a couple of things differently in the structure.
Did your business, let's call it a business model, is that something that you had a game plan and said this is kind of the lane I want to pursue, or is it just as opportunities arose, you just sort of saw things on the fly and adjusted to them?
I will say yes, and I had a game plan with a lot of flexibility around it so that when those opportunities showed up, i.e. the pandemic, which we'll talk about, I was able to pivot and shift and do what needed to be done because of changes in the world. And we're doing the same right now with AI. I mean, that's going to be changing everything. My biggest passion in this field is loneliness. I feel that as a society, we are so lonely. I said it before the Sergeant General said it, so I'm just saying. It is the biggest epidemic that we face by far. And it's gotten worse and worse and worse. Generations ago, people grow up in a town, they stay in their town, their extended family members are in that town, they grow old with their grade school age, friends all the way through. It's not like that anymore. We're taught, oh, go to California if there's a better opportunity, go to New York, go to wherever, chase the opportunity, chase success, and don't worry about people. You'll just make new friends. Swipe left, swipe. I don't know which one is which, but just replace people with people, and it's very lonely and isolating. And as a result, we all have hundreds of friends, but we really feel completely disconnected. We don't have the connection and the depth with any of those friends in many cases. That's why I started the group practice. I wanted that professionally. I wanted that connection professionally. And when anybody comes to work for me, one of the things they're handed, or Rachel, you'll remember in their onboarding, is a book called Tribe by Sebastian Junger, which is about just this. It's about building tribe, about building community.
So once you grew to have, I mean, you have what, 20 therapists with you now or something more?
60.
60? Oh my God, that's crazy. So especially with such a large company, how did you make that community, and maintain it?
here's the thing, you have to lead with something you're passionate about. And so for us, it's delivering excellence. Okay. So everyone who works for us has got to be interested in an evidence-based modality that is relatively short term. Everybody. If that's not your passion, if you want to keep people on the couch for 30 years to talk about what happened when they're 3 years old, you're not our person. That's just not what we do. So our goal is to deliver relatively short-term treatment that is evidence-based. It works. And our team has to be committed to doing it to the T. So we're going to deliver it adherently. We're going to have the gold standard training in that treatment. And when you're leading from a place of what's ethically the right thing to do, the universe provides all the rest. I don't have to worry about the fact that it's short-term treatment, so we get a turnover of clients. It's fine because they will send us their friends and family. So you could get so focused on the business side and profit and growing and lose sight of what you're delivering in the first place. And you have to really focus on that, really exclusively. The rest will come.
I think it's interesting, in doing this podcast and talking to guests in a variety of roles, it seems like there are kind of three different models, and maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but three different models of the type of business they can join. They can be a sole practitioner or join a practice group as they call them partner, but they're really kind of independent contractors, sharing overhead costs, but each one benefits really solely from what they generate and the practice that they build. The second is what I'll call, corporate practice or private equity backed practice. And it tends to be high production oriented. It can be stressful in ways because sometimes people feel like they're compromising on the quality of care that they're able to deliver because of the emphasis on production. And they feel on the one hand, it's 9 to 5, they check in, they check out, but they feel like they sacrifice some of their own professional autonomy. And then the third sounds like you've built sort of a third lane that allows people to develop professionally, to have a degree of autonomy in how they practice, but within an overall framework. And it sounds most importantly like you've developed a community for the people who work there. So could you talk about that? Because I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
really interesting.
And I do think that is what differentiates us in a lot of ways. Group practices tend to have pretty high turnover. And I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to keep the best people and not just have them come here until they get their restricted hours finished and then feel like they have to leave financially. We've created paths for our team members financially and professionally that they actually can stay. They could grow within the business. They could move into a management role where they're getting revenue share from people under them on their team and so forth. And everybody has that opportunity. And as compared to some of the VC-backed, businesses, we're not growing as fast, but we're growing steadily and we're growing in a very healthy way each year. I just would rather do it right than to push so fast and lose our quality of service along the way. It's a steady and slow growth, but it's maintained at least 20% year after year after year. So to me, I'm thrilled with that. And we also grow organically. We don't grow. I'm not sitting here and saying, okay, I want to open a place in North Carolina, so we'll do that. We'll open a place somewhere because we have the right person on our team that can open up that location and run it. And so it really is very organic that way based on the skill set of our team.
So a little bit more on the metrics, 20 to 30% annual revenue growth. A lot of businesses would give their left arm for that kind of performance.
Can you translate that for the medical morons in the back? Like how much are like what similar companies making?
I mean, if you look at growing tech companies, if they're building their businesses at 30% revenue a year, that's high. Like when I was working for a diagnostic company, if we could achieve mid-single digit growth, which is like 4 to 7%, we had performed at a good level. 30% is exceptional.
But we're also not like a multi-billion-dollar company where that would be, so
Yeah.
you're in but still we've maintained it.
And how many locations are there?
Okay, so there are, I think, 12 physical locations, and we're in 6 or 7 states now. 7. So, but some states have multiple physical locations.
And how do you manage multiple locations? Do you have regional managers? Are you all over the place on traveling on the road, visiting these locations? How does that work for you?
No, I'm not. Each region has a clinical director, and some regions also have a clinical manager, which a clinical director is responsible in their geographical area for marketing, the feet on the street kind of marketing, grassroots marketing, networking. They're responsible for the administration for their team, i.e., communicating to leadership from their team and from leadership to their team. They're responsible for coaching and management of their team, and they're responsible for supervision of the team members that their licensure allows them to supervise. So those four functions. And then clinical managers are those that are able to accomplish some of those functions, but not all. So you become a clinical manager before you become a clinical director. So they're responsible for finding the office space with help. We have support, but they will find the space in the area that we need. We're very committed to branding, so they don't furnish it themselves. We give them choices of what they can pick from, but they have some autonomy in choosing, so that it maintains the soft look that we want to maintain. But they're responsible for the things that go on in their area.
So, I mean, this is so crazy. It sounds like you're giving them the opportunity to own their own private practice, but they're not owning it. They just have ownership of it.
Yeah, they're getting revenue share, so they are a part of it, and certainly if there's ever an exit strategy down the line, everybody will be part of that. So they're partners.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so they're therapists too, or
Mhm.
business people?
Yeah.
So they're therapists. Okay. So you obviously had all this experience in business training and marketing and everything. They might not have. Do you coach them? Do you give them like a boot camp or something for them to do that? Because they're representing you ultimately.
Yeah, so, a couple of things. One is we run on EOS. I'm not sure if you're familiar, Entrepreneurial Operating System. So that's a way in which we run our meetings. That's how we have cadence in our meetings for our leadership. So we have these weekly meetings that follow a certain cadence and a certain order of things. So they get used to the business world just from that structure. We have an outside facilitator come in that we set quarterly goals with. They're called rocks in the EOS world. And each meeting we're going through metrics. We go through our KPIs. We go from there on to the things that we agreed to do the week before and making sure that they were done. And you want to have at least 80% of those done no matter what. And then we go through a list of issues that people could post throughout the week. And there are any kind of issues that we need to solve, and we identify them. We describe them and we solve them. So we IDS them. That's what that stands for. And as a group, we solve the issue and create to-dos from that. And so that's how we keep going. And that's how we accomplish the rocks, which are the goals each quarter, is by using that process. So everyone's getting that business background just from being a part of that.
Okay, so this to people like you and my dad is normal. Like people have business structures. I've never worked in a corporate office. I even asked my friends who work corporate jobs. I'm like, what do you do every day? Like, I don't get what the day-to-day meeting looks like. I'm just like, I treat patients and that's it. So can we back up, I guess, to when you wanted to open the second location? How did you find a way to implement all these things? How did you learn that EOS is something that you wanted to use? Now it's a well-oiled machine, but at one point you had to be like, all right, this is too big for me to handle myself.
Yeah, I'm somewhat early on. I joined an organization called EO, Entrepreneur Organization. It's an international organization of entrepreneurs. And so I'm very involved in that. I have a group that I meet with for half a day once a month, and there are events all over the world and that I'm welcome to go to. I'm going right now, I'm attending an entrepreneurial master's program at MIT through this organization. So I'm getting the knowledge from that organization. And it's not necessarily the courses or the monthly thing. It's sometimes this random conversation you have with a random person at one of the events that leads to knowledge of things that you wouldn't have known before. It's important to really get into the business world in some aspect or another so that you have these kinds of resources. As far as opening up a second location, so what happened was we had one location, okay, and then the pandemic happened. And we had a very, very long waiting list. And one of the modalities that we provide is dialectic behavior therapy. And DBT is the evidence-based treatment for people who are suicidal, self-harming, etc. I could not sleep with having a waiting list, knowing that that's what we do. So imperative that we hire and train and hire and train and hire and train. So we did that. We did that quickly. And then one of our therapists wanted to move to New York. So I'm like, okay. So we opened in New York. And then it just kind of organically kept happening that way. One of our New York people moved to New Jersey. One of our Maryland people moved to Virginia. Another one moved to DC. So we were able to kind of just build out state by state based on our team members wanting to open in locations.
That's amazing. You had what, 7 locations now, and that's in 5 years? That's crazy. Holy shit. So now, Rach, what are some differences you noticed in the counseling center that you work for with Marjorie? What kind of office did she allow you to explore your career in that made you want to stick around and recommend it to people?
Yeah, totally. Before coming to the counseling center, I was working in an intensive outpatient program that also functions as a partial hospitalization program for almost like I would say a sort of like failure to launch sort of a model, right? So helping these clients who were feeling really stuck in their lives and providing them with individual therapy and also running groups. And this place that I worked at had access to, all different types of therapy, right? Music therapy, art therapy, moving their bodies, all these things. And working there was really great. And also I burnt out. It was really long hours. It was constant phone calls. It was just a lot to do for such a green therapist. And I totally feel like I gained amazing clinical skills there, but also was sort of just like thrown into the fire, which was a good and a bad thing. But I very quickly sort of was over it. So that's when I found Marjorie. And, I was really interested in sort of helping perhaps the same populations or, that I had been working with, but I was really interested in having a lot more flexibility. And I found that, right? I create my own schedule, right? I make my own hours. So working for Marjorie's practice has been great because I get to highlight all of my clinical skills, working one-on-one, working with families, working with couples. And also I don't feel burnt out, right? I feel like this is manageable for the way that my life has changed from the time that I joined Marjorie, right? Was when I was moving from New York back to Maryland. And now I have a 7-month-old baby and I still am making it work. So I think that's why it's been such a great transition is I'm still doing what I love and also somewhat on my own terms.
Talk a little bit about the culture of the community that Marjorie has built, how people there feel about being part of the organization.
Yeah, so the community aspect is really big at CCG. And so knowing that moving into private practice could be particularly lonely, could be no chats at the water tank, in between clients and things like that was really scary to me because I love that and I also need it. I feel like all of the therapists, we need that. We need that connection with each other. It's so important. And then also there are internal trainings and there are networking events and there are meetings that happen where, everyone is sort of touching base with one another.
And kind of talk a little bit about the mentoring that you're receiving, not just in terms of being a professional social worker, but also in developing a practice and learning about the financial aspects of the practice. Talk a little bit about that, what you've learned from Marjorie and the organization.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I might be one of those people, and I've been working on this in my own therapy, but I do not like delegating things to other people. And I think that is a huge part of starting your own business. So I haven't actually looked that much into starting my own practice, even though I could now, being an LCSW, go off on my own. But I think with the community that Marjorie's created here, right? I don't know if I want to go off by myself. And also it takes a lot and it is a risk, right? And I don't know if I'm in that place in my life yet to do that. So all of the information that Marjorie shares is super, super helpful. And also I know that when I want to make that change, if I do want to make that change, but I also see such a benefit to working for a practice like this, right? Like I get a lot of benefit from being an employee and a contractor of CCG. And I think some of that might go away if I were to, own my own practice, but it's all good information to have. So learning always from Marjorie. And also I don't even want to start my own yet.
You got such a good gig where you're at. Why would you want to do that?
Yeah, it's a big undertaking.
Yeah, totally. No, honestly, talking to all these people through this podcast has made me really want to think about starting your own practice just because it is a ton of extra work that's not related to your trained profession. So you have to be like 110% sure that this is what you want to be part of. Marjorie, I'm curious when you're hiring these clinical directors and like the regional managers, what are some qualities you're looking for, especially because if they're in another region, how do you know if they're the best therapist? Like, how do you feel like you can have an intimate and close relationship with these people if, you're not necessarily seeing them all the time?
Yeah, we do so much case conceptualization. We do so many consultation teams that I do have a very strong feel as to people's clinical abilities, especially those that attend more things. A lot of things are optional, and people who don't attend, I'm not going to know about their clinical abilities. Aside from the clinical side, we run our business by 6 core values, and we live and breathe the core values, and we hire according to the core values. When we've had to, we fire because of the core values, and you have to meet those core values. So all of the people that advance within the company exhibit those things, and everybody who works for the company exhibits those things. It's just who we are.
And what, I'm sorry to interrupt, Marjorie,
Yeah.
but what are the 6?
Yeah, so passion, being passionate about what you do, connection, wanting to be connected to the whole company as well as the outside community, adherence to our modality, being adherent to providing what we provide the way we were going to do it, being motivated to grow. Play is a huge value of ours, and radical ownership. Really, if you say you're going to do something, you do it, and you do it all the way through. So really committing to all of those pieces is everything to us. Every Monday morning we meet as an entire team. We do a short mindfulness practice together as a team, and then somebody reads one of our core values and gives an example as to how an anecdote about the core value, or an example as to how they lived the core value that week, or somebody on the team did, and everybody shares examples. So we really reinforce that in terms of who we are. I didn't come up with them on my own. We did it as a team, that this is who we are. This is what we want to represent. So it gives a very clear pathway as to, how people advance and so forth.
It's striking, and maybe you don't see yourself this way, but you are incredibly thoughtful about developing the culture of your company. It sounds like that's really more than generating business and growing revenue and managing costs and all the sort of, more mundane aspects, that's really sort of where you've spent a lot of time and thoughtfulness. And it sounds so obvious in some ways, but I would say many businesses don't nearly allocate that kind of priority and emphasis to that. Did you have like an epiphany where, you just said, wait a second, this is what I got to do? Or is it just how you've always been as a person? And so it was just a logical growth for you as you pursued this business? How did you get there?
Yeah, well, wanting community is why I started it in the first place. So community is so much more than just having a group of people. You had to have the culture to go along with that. So really committing to that all the way through. We get together quarterly, most of the time in person, and we have what we call a consciousness forum. And during that time, we have an outside facilitator come in. She's not a therapist. It's not about CEUs or about our work. It's really about helping us to each grow personally and as a team. And everybody loves that. So we do that regularly. Rachel doesn't know this, but our 10-year anniversary is going to be next year, and we're going to have a 3-day retreat in person.
I love the consciousness forum. I think I have my book on the shelf right here.
It's fantastic, but we're going to do a 3-day retreat where it's really all about us and for us as a team. Not everything can be about business. It's got to be about community. It's got to be fun,
100%. I think that something I've noticed just being part of like several clubs and stuff in dental school is that it's hard to get other people to have the same intrinsic motivation for the same goal for your company. So by creating that culture, it's like they want to be part of it. They want to be more and more involved.
I've been in organizations where productivity has really been emphasized, and in all businesses, to be successful and grow, you have to have a productivity component. But it sounds like your hierarchy, your pyramid, that kind of flows from the culture that you've established. I mean, is that a fair take, and that you consciously don't want to put too much pressure on productivity as being the ultimate goal, and that your philosophy is that it'll flow from a great work environment, high standards for care, things like that. I mean, am I getting that right?
You're 100% accurate. In fact, it's funny. I was looking at one of these social media groups I'm in for therapy owners, and someone was asking, my staff currently it's pulling teeth to get them to see X number of people a week, and how do I get them to see this other number? And I'm like, I don't want to push people to carry a certain caseload. If they want to make more money, they could carry a bigger caseload. If they want to, have a different work-life balance, that's okay too. We want flexibility. I mean, Rachel had a baby. We've had so many babies on our team, and we love that. And we love that people can have that flexibility and, change their working hours when they want to, because it suits them and their family and their lifestyles. And even with our administrative staff, we switched this year to unlimited PTO because it matches our values. Unlimited PTO and get your job done. Like if you're going to take time off, awesome, and just make sure somebody's covering for you.
So, some questions, and my dad knows I'm fascinated by therapy. I love it. I love learning about it. I like listening to podcasts about it. I just think like our minds are so fun. My dad's so similar. He loves like thinking about this kind of stuff and going real deep, No, he has no interest in going deep, which maybe you can diagnose him on something, Dad. That might be
Right.
something we should look
We
into.
don't.
I'm just saying.
I'm already being diagnosed.
He is avoidant. Is that what you said?
Maybe some avoidance. Yeah.
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 Dad, let's look into that.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna play like a little game, really quick game. A little rapid fire of just some like therapist related questions. Anxiety medications, how frequent they're being used. Is this good or bad?
Oh my gosh, gonna be the most like therapy answer ever. It's neither good nor bad. I do see it a lot.
Well, are people overutilizing or underutilizing?
Over, I would say, in general.
I'll say I'm a believer of skills, not pills. However, when pills help you to access the skills for a period of time, they could be extremely beneficial. But to go that route instead of doing the work, that's not ideal.
Right.
Totally. Okay, is therapy for everyone or certain types of people?
Everyone.
Say everyone with the off chance that something might feel better or work better for them, right? So like anyone can go to therapy. I think it can be helpful. And also I've seen someone who was in therapy and then they decided to take up kickboxing and Tai Chi, and I don't know, that worked better for them.
If you want to grow personally, therapy can be really helpful with the right therapist that you're working with. So anybody can benefit, but anybody except for those who don't have willingness to fully participate.
Definitely. All right, online therapy versus in person.
I prefer in person.
Yeah, hybrid I think at least having an in-person option is ideal.
How should people look for the right therapist for them?
I mean, the best is word of mouth. If you know someone who you respect, who's received help and it's been helpful to them, word of mouth is fantastic. Online is great. And along with that, what I tell people is don't assume everybody else is the expert. If you have an appointment with a therapist and you don't feel connection, trust yourself and find a different therapist. Don't go to 3 or 4 or 5 sessions thinking, well, I just have to give it more of a chance. No, you got to trust yourself. And if it's wrong, make the adjustment.
Totally. What about everyone's like open to therapy, but they're not necessarily as like, I'm like, I'll tell my therapist anything. Let's get into it. Like, I once told a therapist, I want you to understand my brain better than I know my own brain. And she felt like that was a lot of pressure. But I'm curious, like, I've had friends, they're a little, I don't know if skeptical, but they're nervous. It's an anxiety provoking thing for them. And they'll go to one therapist and they're like, didn't like them. And so then they get turned off by therapy. What do you have to say to those types of people, especially in healthcare, who really could use that support, even though they're high functioning, they're fine. They don't need it, to get by their day by day, but it would really enhance their life.
I would tell them that they were right in their experience, that makes sense. I mean, we interview so many people and it takes probably 50 interviews to find a great candidate. There are a lot of people out there in this field for a lot of different reasons. And so trust yourself, but don't assign that to the whole field.
Yeah, I would say it's similar to like a speed dating. If you're looking for a new therapist, go with the vibe, right? And how was the first date? How did you feel, right? How comfortable were you? Go with your gut. If it doesn't feel good, then it doesn't feel good and it's not going to work.
Totally. Totally. All right. Last question we always ask our guests. Any crazy patient or clinical or in your education stories that are relatable for other healthcare practitioners you want to share with us?
I have my most embarrassing moment that I should have lost my license over. I was sitting with a client, this was years ago, and I was using a metaphor like a light switch, like, when he was going around with a lot of negative thoughts, and it was like, what's going to go wrong and this is going to happen. I said, when you notice that, just notice that you're having the negative thought. Imagine a light switch and flip the switch and flip it to what you want to happen instead. So instead of this day is going to be awful, I hope this day is great. So switching it to the opposite. And so I felt really good about the session. He liked it. He liked the analogy. I came back to my computer. It was just a simple little thing. It was much more to the session, but I was like wanting to just send him a little reminder. So I Googled light switch image. So I texted him an image of a light switch. But when I looked for the image on Google, it was tiny, tiny image. And when I hit the send, it blew up and on the light switch, it said, "You turn me on." And I'm like, I'm sorry, didn't mean to send that. Didn't see the writing. I'm like, I'm gonna lose my license. It was awful, but I still laugh about that.
It is so funny. Yeah, digital age can get you.
Yeah, no, I called and I apologized. I truly did not see the letters on the
You
thing.
don't turn me on. That is so good. I love it. I love it. Rach, anything that comes to mind for you?
When I was working at a PHP program in Maryland, I was taking a client out to grab some lunch. So we went on a bit of a walk and the client ran into their friends. And of course, with HIPAA, I don't announce who I am. I don't say anything, right? It's up to the client. And the client introduces me as one of their friends from another school. And this client and I are sort of years apart, but I'm still, maybe 20 at this point. And I had to walk with that client and their friends and pretend like I was a teenager that went to another school. So that was kind of hard to keep that up with.
You were an actress. Rachel was Mary Poppins back in our day at camp, so you had some training.
That's true. I didn't break out in song.
Oh, bummer.
But I did have to pretend to be a teenager. It was kind of funny. I don't know if they bought it.
Okay. Where can people come work with you guys? How can they follow your journey, social media, website, all the things?
counselingcentergroup.com, or, we're in New York, New Jersey, Virginia, DC, Maryland, and Florida, and soon to be in Georgia.
And then, Rach, if they want to work with you, just on the website, they can come work you out, right?
Yep. I have a bio up there, and reach out.
Yay, perfect. Thank you guys so much.
You guys did a great job. Thank you.
Really, really fun. Bye, guys. Had so much fun.
Bye, Rach.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Medical Morons. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review.